Let's talk about the structure of a compelling social media or an ad post. And so what we have here is some copy from that I wrote for a client. I'm going to show a couple of things today. We're going to talk about the structure, and then we're going to talk about what it means to write better copy. So let's talk about structure here. So for this copy, what I'm calling safe copy is copy you won't get in trouble for. It'll appeal to everybody. It's like AI copy, right? It's like basically you can't get in trouble because you're not going to say anything out of the ordinary, or unfortunately, you're not going to say anything compelling either, usually. It's going to be very straightforward. It's going to tell people what you do, and that's about it. It's not going to show any personality, and it's not going to take any real risks unless you make it. And I'm talking about AI right now. All right, so let's take a look. This is a cloud computing company. And so image copy, and this is the copy that goes in the image, the picture on social. And it says cost-effective cloud solutions. Cost-effective cloud solutions. How do you manage costs while moving to the cloud? Precision gives you cost-effective cloud solutions that maximize ROI. Everybody wants to maximize ROI, right? How do we do it? We customize cloud solutions to fit your budget and your needs. We optimize cloud resources to reduce waste. We analyze the cost benefit of your cloud investment. Manage your costs with cost-effective cloud solutions. So let's start by going over the structure. The structure is the promise. So that's a promise up there, right? And it's safe. The promise is a safe way to do it. So that's the image copy. The copy is, how do you manage costs while moving to the cloud? Well, if people have this question, they're like, yeah, I need to manage costs while moving to the cloud. That's a huge problem I have. And we're like, okay, cool. This is the solution for you, because precision gives you cost-effective cloud solutions that maximize ROI. Great. How do we do it? And so it gives the case that we can make. And then here's the call to action. It's kind of a light call to action. It's not like buy now, right? It's manage your costs with cost-effective cloud solutions. But the copy is pretty general. Let's go to the top again, and let's talk about the sections, because I didn't go through those very well. So image copy, this is the promise. This is the problem. How do you manage costs when moving to the cloud? Guys, there are two main things you have to have in every story. One of them is you have to have the problem. You have to be able to have the problem that relates to your audience. And then you have to have characters that people care about. So I always think of the Punisher at the beginning of the movie. Doesn't he get beat up or almost killed or something like that? Lots of hero stories have your hero and he's getting destroyed, right? At the beginning. So you have a problem, or there's some kind of problem that he can't solve, or that doesn't seem apparent how he can solve it. Superman, someone kidnaps Lois Lane, right? And his superpowers are good and everything and they help, but it's not super clear how he's going to rescue Lois Lane without her getting hurt when she's kidnapped. So you have to have some kind of problem. And so all this is storytelling. You also have to have characters that people care about. And so if there's a character, we've all seen movies where the character, they try to make the character sympathetic at the beginning, but you're like, I don't really like this character. And they're like, oh no, something bad's going to happen to her. And you're like, I hope it does, right? It's, you have to like the character. And so if you don't like the character, the story is immediately less compelling. And so who's the character in the story? You cannot solve the problem before they've solved it. So this is a key problem that a lot of people have. They try to use story, but then they're like, all right, cool. Well, all you have to do is this. Isn't that great? Well, it's not great. Not yet, because they haven't done it yet. They haven't taken that call to action yet. So it's not great yet. Their problem isn't solved. Their life isn't perfect now. The grass isn't greener yet. All right, so cost-effective cloud solutions. Hey, here's a problem. How do you manage costs while moving to the cloud? So it's a problem. And what you're doing is you're connecting to someone who's nervous about moving to the cloud because they don't know, hey, I want to move to the cloud. It does seem like a more hardened solution. I don't want to have to keep my own servers, and I don't want to keep everything on everyone's computer. I want to move it to the cloud so that we can all get to it. When I was the operations guy at Resound, I wanted everything moved to the cloud because I didn't want everything on my computer, and so that nobody else could use it. Okay, so that's a concern. Manage costs will move to the cloud. Put yourself in the position of a person who is an operations person who's thinking about moving to the cloud. Someone at a smaller company, they might not have a technology person. They might not have a chief information officer or anything like that, right? And so they may be like, probably the question they're asking is, can I afford it? And is it going to be worth it? So they probably want a cost benefit analysis. So it's like, this might be a little too vague for them to be a really good story. It might not hook. The story, the tension has to hook, right? You have to be able to tell them something that's going to be like, okay, I want to know the answer to this. But if it's like, how do you manage costs while moving to the cloud? It seems like it'll connect, but we don't have personas. We haven't talked to anybody, and we're not taking any risks here. This is not a risk. And so Well, the only risk it takes is the strategy that we're focusing on cost. Move to the cloud? We're promising to answer that question. Okay, so let's go to the solution. Precision gives you cost-effective cloud solutions that maximize ROI. So what if they're like, yeah, you can maximize ROI and I can still not afford it, right? And we're talking about operations people here who are logical. They're not just going to be like, oh, that means I can afford it. No, they're looking at the words and they're saying, hey, I'm not sure this is, maybe, maybe not. You know why? Because this is vague, because it doesn't take a stand, because it doesn't make a promise that solves their problem. The question, remember, is in real life, the question is, can I afford it? This doesn't talk about that. It talks about reducing the cost of moving to the cloud. But what if they don't have to move to the cloud, right? They might decide not to move to the cloud because they don't even know if they can afford this, right? Okay, so we said problem and we've claimed a solution right here. We could stop there. As long as that problem is a problem that matters, and as long as the solution is an interesting solution and compelling. But what if it's like, well, we don't know how you're going to do that. And so here's what we add. Why should they believe the claim? And that's sometimes part of a creative brief, but we have here is how do we do it? It's kind of like a proven process. If anybody's familiar with StoryBrand, this is a proven process, right? So what do we do first to prove that we can control costs? We customize cloud solutions to fit your budget and needs. Now we're making a promise, like we will match your budget and your needs. If their budget's $10, right? Nobody who's looking to move to the cloud thinks it's going to cost just $10, right? It's going to be, hundreds of thousands to move to the cloud. They probably know that. So it's probably not too much of a risk to say this, but it is a good promise because it claims we can do it to fit your needs. That's a good claim. That takes a stand a little bit, right? We optimize cloud resources to reduce waste. So what this means to anybody who knows anything about cloud resources is that when we move your stuff to the cloud, it's going to be stored and accessed in a way that doesn't use bandwidth. It maximizes that so that since we know what your needs are, we're setting this up in a way that will use less resources from that remote server like Google Cloud or Azure or I would say AWS, right? Because they charge you every time. If you move something, you get charged. If you're storing something, you get charged. If you're storing it in quick access to where you'll need it a lot, you get charged a little more than if you store it in a more archived format that's a little harder to get to, but you pay less for the storage. So there's all kinds of things to think about. We analyze the cost benefit of your cloud investment. So I think it's kind of this plan, right? Either that or this analysis is post hoc. It's like every month we're looking at your cost benefit, which is a cool promise. Manage your costs with cost-effective cloud solutions. This is a safe copy. This copy is okay. It'll get you there. But what I did was I wrote him, what I wanted to do is show the contrast between safe copy and something a little better, maybe something that tells the story a little better. This kind of stuff, it'll get approved. Corporate will approve it, right? The lawyers, compliance, they'll approve all this stuff, probably. Let's go to some better copy and see what we got here. So better copy, image copy is cost-effective cloud solutions for almost any budget. So this just says cost-effective cloud solution. This says like almost any budget. So in a way, we're kind of making fun of this whole idea of, for any budget, right? Well, for almost any budget, let's be realistic, right? And so let's see what the copy says. This shouldn't say cloud solutions are supposed to flex with your needs, alleviating a whole slew of security concerns and saving you money. So that's what I wanted to say. How do you set things up right for the way your company works and not spend a ton of money is the implied, claim here. Turns out it's not as complicated as it sounds. And so this does not sound like AI, right? This sounds like a human talking to you. That's the point. Guys, I used to have, when I wrote for radio, because I had a short stint where I worked for radio when I was a grad student. And I had some clients were like, yeah, that doesn't sound like an ad though, right? And I'm like, that is exactly the point. I don't want it to sound like an ad because if it sounds like an ad, people are going to tune it out. I didn't like having the on-air radio talent do the reads for ads that we would sell because you could buy an ad and you could have the on-air radio talent, the DJs, read the ad. But when they read the ad, they made it sound like they were horrible. Like they're great at what they do. But they were horrible when they were reading an ad because they made it sound like such an ad that everybody's like, yeah, I'm not really interested in hearing this. And they turn down or they start talking or whatever. Or they're just annoyed by the ad. So don't make it sound like an ad. What we have here is like, here's the what's supposed to happen. But here's the problem. I developed it a little more. You remember up here, we just had it one line. Well, I felt like this needed 2 lines. Let's talk a little more with the people. Let's get on the same page with them. Turns out it's not as complicated as it sounds. Which sounds more like believable? Precision gives you cost-effective cloud solutions that maximize ROI, or someone who talks like this. Turns out it's not as complicated as it sounds. I think this is better. So we usually handle it this way. And so that sounds like a little more like I'm talking to a friend. Usually, what do you mean usually? Don't you have this proven process you do every time? No, we're more laid back here at Precision, right? Look at your budget and how you work. We customize cloud solutions to fit your budget and needs. Well, I feel like you're not going to try to intimidate me. I feel like you're going to talk to me like a person. I feel like I'm not going to be just a victim. I'm actually going to understand what's going on because you're going to tell me in English. Find out how much we think you'll spend by going with a cloud solution. So in other words, figure out your budget, figure out how much we think it'll cost you. Find ways to reduce the load on your cloud services so you're not paying for more than you need. So this is find ways to reduce your load so that, and this is what you care about, you're not paying for more than you need. Nobody wants to pay for more than they need. But up here it says, we optimize cloud resources to reduce waste. Well, were we talking about paper, thrown in the trash, waste paper basket? What do we mean reduce waste? Reduce heat that comes off and hurts the environment? This tells you exactly what it is. So you're not paying for more than you need. All right. And then this says, get cost-effective cloud solutions to fit almost any budget. Now I could have played with the almost a little more, but I didn't want to, there's not really a lot there. But how the cloud reduces your security concerns. That's a sucky headline. A benefit of the cloud is that much of the security burden sits on their shoulders. Just try to break into Google, Amazon, or Azure server farms and see how far you get. It's easier to break into Area 51. The truth is, the enhanced security measures the cloud offers help you protect data and comply with regulations. And we can help. We'll implement advanced security protocols and encryption, perform regular security audits and compliance checks, and ensure disaster recovery and business continuity planning. Take the security burden off your shoulders. So you have security concerns, that's a burden, right? All right, well, we take it off your shoulders, and here's how, right? It's easier to break into Area 51. I could have used that as a headline. And you might think, oh, but it doesn't tell you everything. It doesn't matter. It's easier to break into Area 51 if the subhead is how the cloud reduces your security concerns, would be a great ad, because you're hooking them and they're like, there's something interesting here. AI did not write this. This is a person making a stand. Let's see how crazy they are. And it's readable. Okay, so let's go to the next version of this. This was the safe copy. I spruced it up a little bit, I think. I found a story in there that I thought I'd tell, and I think it's an interesting story. But let's go to the next one. Let's see what we did here. So, better copy. It's like having Navy SEALs guarding your data. Okay, so there's a little bit of an analogy there. It's like having Navy SEALs guard my data. Well, let's look at this should say better again. What am I doing here? Better copy. What I did was I copied that top thing down and didn't change it. Okay. If the SEALs were guarding your server room, the biggest problem you'd have is all the over the top books they'd write about the experience. But your server would be safe, that's for sure. We don't have SEALs, and you might not have a server room, but here's what we do have. And then we can link to the landing page. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So using the same headline, same image copy, if the SEALs were guarding your server room, the biggest problem you'd have is getting rid of all the Axe body spray smell, right? Why does this work for Precision? Well, the guy who owns Precision is a competitive shooter. He gets all the jokes, and the types of people he'd be helping, a lot of them are in this audience who would get the joke. And the SEALs are famous for, being a little more some people think they're the pretty boys of the special operations community. If you talk to some Army Special Forces and you talk to different people, they make fun of themselves sometimes too, and they're a lot of fun. So I have a good friend who's a SEAL. So anyway, and so this is, again, image copy, which is kind of the headline that you're working with. Body copy, I think it's better. Here's what would be great, but you don't have that, right? You don't have that. But we don't have SEALs, but we do have this, right? And so you're basically making a promise there, and it's a lot more of an interesting problem. This headline is going to get attention better. But now that I think about it, going back up here, I think this is the headline. I mean, if I had to do this over again, here's what I'd do. So why don't we do this together real quick? Follow along with me as we create another option. Let's say better copy. And then let's do this. So I'm in Google Docs. I'm going to go with that. Paste. I'm going to go body copy. Then I'm going to go here and do subhead, because it's kind of like a headline. I'm going to take this and I'm going to go down here. I'm going to take this. I'm going to copy it because I can do that. I don't have to just use it up there, right? Image copy. It's easier to break into Area 51. And let's capitalize some of these. It's easier to break into Area 51. So that's the image copy, and the subhead is how the cloud reduces your security concerns. So now everybody knows, hey, here's something that looks like I should read it and it's interesting, and here's what it's about. Like, say it straight and develop it out a little bit. And then you go into here, and now you have the whole story that they want to read. This still flows here, and it's okay to have that in the image copy and the body. And then enhanced security measures off your protection. And so, all right, so one more time. So we need the problem to be front and center. And then we need to make sure that they understand, exacerbate. And that's a term I learned as an EMT. Exacerbate is to stir it up, make it more of a problem than you thought it was. So state the problem and then make it matter, right? Make it bad. When the Punisher gets beat up at the beginning and he's basically left for dead, you're like, man, right? It's not like he got a scratch on the cheek. How's he going to recover? No, he gets beat down. He gets almost destroyed. And you're like, whoa, you want bad things that you do not want to sugarcoat their problem. If you sugarcoat the problem, you remove the tension. And so a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to, we don't want to be negative, right? And I'm like, you need a problem. And if you're not willing to put a problem into your ad, then you may find that nobody cares about your ad, right? That you being nice doesn't cut through the clutter at all. Give them something, make a commitment, and give them something that they'll be interested in and will get their attention for the right reasons. And now you have a story. So, all right. So tension, that's what you're doing with the problem. And when you exacerbate the problem, stir it up, you're creating tension, you're making it matter. Then what you're doing is saying, okay, here's a solution. And then you might, depending on if people need to know, you might decide, hey, and I'm going to tell them how we're going to do it because they're not going to believe us if we just say, we're going to talk about how we do it differently. And so make this interesting, add some secret sauce, talk about something that you do. Like we do a full assessment. It's not just a checklist, and then talk about how it's not. Or maybe you make the whole ad about how it's not a checklist that we use. And so don't be afraid to zoom in. The point is, remember, it's problem, exacerbate the problem. Now you have a story they're interested in. Now you have a hook. Talk about how you can solve it, make the promise, and then potentially build it out by saying, here's how we'll do it. And then restate that call to action. Make sure that they know what they need to do in order to get what you offer. And so I think you need a link, right? You want that link. And so that link probably goes to that landing page. One little bonus tip is that don't send them to your homepage usually, because the homepage usually talks about all the good stuff you do, testimonials, all this other general stuff about what you do. So it's an overview. It's an intro to your company. But a landing page is this. It is cloud security, maybe in this one, right? Cloud security, or it's cloud migration or whatever, right? Have I made it crystal clear? So this is how you write. This is the structure you want to write an ad, is that you want, let's do it real quick. Let's just actually make it. And I'll use this. I will sacrifice my document here. Okay. Structure, image copy, hook, problem, promise. It's better if it's a hook or a problem, but a promise will get you by. It's better to have the hook or the problem, unless they already know. The only reason you'd want to use a promise that would be powerful is if they already know. Like, I already know what I need. I just need someone who will promise me this thing. Most clients are like, no, we want the promise to be up front. And I'm like, no, you want the story to be up front. You want the hook. You want the problem to be up front, because people are going to know that you can solve it. You're not buying ads to just tell them they have a problem. You're buying ads to show them a solution, or you're posting things on social to show them a solution. So they already know. You don't have to worry that they're not going to know that this is an ad, right? They're not going to know you have a solution for their problem. Okay, so go in here and state the problem. In this case, it's a dream world, right? State the solution. We just kind of made it like, hey, that would be great, right? Well, we're trying to relate to them. This actually isn't a great ad when it comes to exacerbating the problem. You want to intensify the problem. So state the problem, intensify, and then solve the problem for them. And then tell them where to go. You need the CTA. Let's do this. Intensify. Promise your solution, and then clear CTA. What we want you to do. What do we want you to do? Call to action, right? What we want you to do. That's a really simple. Now we can figure out how to lay out cost-effective solutions. So this is the problem. This is like exacerbation of the problem. But how do you do this? Here's kind of the problem, right? And then here's the promised solution. Why should they believe the solution? Well, here you go. Here's your case. Call to action. I do think it needs a web link. And I think we ended up doing a web link for this one. A link that goes to the homepage. All right, that's it. Guys, I hope this helps you know how to structure these social media posts or ads like this. It's pretty much the same all the time. It's just that you're going to apply differently. And if you can understand, if you can make this relevant to the people you're talking to, use the words they use, make sure you understand their problem the way they understand it, you're going to win. If you can write, you're going to win.